Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon. Before we make today's announcement, I just want to provide an update about the work we're doing to help the folks impacted by Hurricane Sally up in Northwest Florida. Our number one priority was the safety of everybody and protecting life. Unfortunately, we've not had a storm-related fatality reported. Both the local, state, and federal assets were engaged in hundreds of rescues for people whose neighborhoods or around their homes were flooded. And we appreciate all the support that the federal government's provided, and obviously our National Guard and search and rescue teams that have done it. The National Guard alone did over 200 rescues from the time the storm hit. At the peak of power outages, so the protecting life's the number one. Number two is getting everyone, particularly in Escambia and Santa Rosa County, to help pave the way for the power to go on. And so I've told the Florida Highway Patrol, as well as the Department of Emergency Management, FDOT, make sure we do whatever we need to do to clear any roads so that those utility trucks can get in there. They're working 24/7. The state has provided lights so that they can work throughout the night. There's about 250,000 homes that lost power during the course of this. So far, the companies have been able to restore power to over 115,000, and they continue to work around the clock. So that's something that's very significant. We understand the importance of that. We also are requesting a full disaster declaration from the president. That will help open up more resources, particularly for things like debris removal. We were able to do a tour last night. There obviously was damage. It was really extensive flooding. There's going to be a debris bill. And we want to make sure that the locals are getting the reimbursements that they need. So we're going to continue to provide support for that. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who was out there helping protect life. Also to the residents who, exercise caution. A lot of times the reason why someone went to get picked up in a high water vehicle is because the resident called. They heeded the warnings not to go out in that standing water, and we think that that's right. And we're happy to be here today. And I want to thank the First Lady for coming. I want to thank Madison and Mason for coming. We told them, when I was a kid, I went to Buccaneer Bay. I told them sometime when they get a little older, we'll take them and have some fun. But I want to thank Noah for all his great work at DEP, Dr. Tom Frazier, Chief Science Officer. We have Jeff Rogers, the Administrator of Hernando County here, Wayne Dukes, Commissioner, Hernando County, John Mitten, Chairman and Commissioner of Hernando County, Roger German, Board Member, Southwest Florida Water Management District, and Jeff Holcomb, Commissioner of Hernando County. Of course, we have Senator Wilton Simpson, who will be the President of the Florida Senate come November. So we appreciate his support for a lot of our efforts, particularly for the efforts that are impacting here in his backyard. The springs of Florida are a huge part of what makes Florida, Florida. It's an iconic part of our natural resources. We have more large springs than any other state in the country, including Weeki Wachee and other nationally known springs like Silver Springs, Rainbow Springs, and Wakulla Springs. We probably have more total springs than any other state in the country. One of our top priorities in our administration has been to improve water quality in Florida, and there's no way you can do that effectively without also devoting resources to springs restoration. And so today, I'm happy to announce that we are in the process of finishing an unprecedented 2-year investment of $150 million in Florida springs. We did $100 million last year and an additional $50 million this year. We've obligated all $50 million dedicated to springs projects for the year, and we're happy today to be able to cut the first check of $3.7 million right here to Weeki Wachee. So here we go. You guys want to do something real quick? Wonderful. All right. Yeah, for sure. So we're excited about it. Yes, we can go. Don't worry. She saw the Twisty Treat ice cream on the way, and so we're not going to be able to get out of here without doing that. The $3.7 million will go toward enhancements at the Hernando County Glen Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant to achieve the state's advanced wastewater treatment standards, reducing the amount of nutrients that could negatively impact the spring. We have $46.3 additional million to fund 20 additional spring projects ranging from land acquisition to septic to sewer conversion to enhance water quality monitoring and additional restoration efforts that will improve the quality of life throughout Florida. So this is really exciting to be able to do this. We had a tough budget year just given the changes in the circumstances that we were facing, but I really felt it was important to preserve the environmental funding that we fought so hard for. I think that will prove to have been a wise choice and a prudent investment. Also, though, in addition to Springs funding, we are located along the Nature Coast today, and I wanted to highlight another project that we are also excited about in our administration. As some of you know, I signed HB 1061 this year to create the Nature Coast Aquatic Preserve. This preserve designation protects the water and submerged lands from dredging and filling, commercial or residential docking facilities and structures, and waste discharges. It also means scientists and staff will regularly collect water quality data, including critical nutrient data that guides effective management actions that are needed to ensure the protection of the preserve and adjacent waters. The new preserve will protect 400,000 acres of seagrass and connect with 3 existing preserves, Big Bend seagrasses, St. Martin's Marsh, and Pinellas County aquatic preserves, to form the largest contiguous stretch of protected seagrass in the entire Gulf of Mexico region. So this is also the first aquatic preserve to be added to Florida's reserve system in more than 30 years. I want to thank Representative Mazzullo and Senator Albritton for sponsoring the bill. It's a big deal for both the environment and the economy, which is so reliant on Florida's robust boating and commercial and recreational fishing industries. Our state is defined by our connection to water, from clean drinking water to creating the habitat for critical and endangered plants and wildlife to supporting local economies with outdoor recreation. And the projects announced today are a major part of our effort to protect our state's water quality, not only for this generation, but for future generations as well. I want Noah to come up and discuss some of the additional details of the projects selected for Springs grant funding.
Thank you, Governor. I'll mention, I think when I was a little older than Mason and Madison, I always remembered growing up in North Florida, my parents would take me out to the freshwater springs of Florida, and miraculously my mother's talking points changed. In the summer it was, let's go enjoy the cool water of Florida springs, which are always between around 68 and 72 degrees. And then a little, right around this time of year, maybe a little further into the fall, all of a sudden become, let's go enjoy the warm waters of the springs. And it wasn't until older that I caught the trick and started wondering a little bit. But they are certainly a jewel of Florida. I'd first like to thank the governor for 2 really important things that I don't want to be overlooked. The first was, thanks to the governor's leadership under his administration, when we've been providing funding for projects like this to improve water quality for springs or other resources throughout Florida, we're now doing it with a chief science officer on board. And to have Dr. Frazier as part of our team looking through these projects and making sure that they're meeting the goal, which is make sure we've got the quantity of water needed to preserve these springs for future generations, and also that we've got the quality of water. So to have Tom on board to be able to go through these projects with the team and make sure that we're making the right choices to get as much benefit as possible for the tax dollar has been a critical change, and I just have to thank the governor for that. The second is that we know we have funding. Under the governor's administration, he's had record amount of funding for water quality each year, a goal of having $2.5 billion invested in water quality over 4 years. That's just changed how we operate as an agency. We don't have to wonder, what if we don't have money next year? Do we have the funds? The only thing we have to worry about right now is getting the job done and protecting Florida's environment, and we truly thank you for that, Governor. The project that we're talking about today is a great example. So with the county's investment also, the state bringing $3.7 million to the table, the county also investing a significant amount of funds, we'll be able to see the regional wastewater treatment plant move to an advanced wastewater treatment, which means for nitrogen, total nitrogen, you'll see levels of around 14 milligrams per liter, which was where we are today, go all the way down to 3 milligrams per liter, which is critical to maintaining water quality and seeing springs like Weeki Wachee be around for future generations in the same quality that we remember them. Elsewhere in Florida, you're seeing investments from the $50 million in land acquisition up in North Florida around Swanee River. You're seeing almost 3,700 acres of acquisitions to protect 3 different iconic spring heads in North Florida. Elsewhere, you're seeing projects that invest in reuse and water conservation, making sure that as we use water for the economy of Florida, that we're taking care to make sure that there's water in the ground to sustain springs flowing again for future generations. That cumulative approach is really going to make a difference. We've got a long road to go, but with the funding and the right tools, the Chief Science Officer on board, we know we're going to do it. And Governor, thank you so much for your leadership.
Weldon? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for including me here today. Weeki Wachee is also hopefully going to have a major restoration project in addition to these projects we talked here today over the next coming years, where we can restore the banks and the dredging that needs to be done to restore Weeki Wachee. And with this governor's leadership on the environment, when we talk about the Everglades for hours, but where we live, we have springs. And if you want to Google a project and you Google Kings Bay, in Crystal Rivers, just a few miles north of here, Homosassa's had funding to continue the restoration of that spring shed, and now Weeki Wachee making significant investments here. Over the course of the next 5 years, we hope that they're significantly finished projects, and we're restoring these back to 1940s or 30s versions. And everyone knows what we're doing. We're moving all the limbia out of the bottom of these spring sheds, which has opened up many freshwater vents, and then we're planting eelgrass to compete for the nutrients. And this governor's been a champion on not only those projects, but the septic to sewer projects. We have to remove that nutrient load from them, the watersheds, to make sure that we don't get back in the same position a decade or two from now. So we're very proud to work with the governor. We're going to have a trying couple of years coming up with the pandemic and things that are going on there, and Hurricane Sally. We're going to have resources to go to that area of the state again, but we're grateful that the governor's leadership is bringing us through all of these crises, and that we're able to protect our waterways and future water resources and growth. So thank you, Governor. Thank you for being here today.
Great. Also, just mention we had the jobs report today. Florida's unemployment rate was dropped 35% from where it was after the end of July. We still got a ways to go, but 7.4% was much better than what was predicted. People thought we were going to be, 15% plus unemployment for a while. The softness clearly still in Central Florida just because of the tourism. Now the theme parks are open, people are doing stuff. The convention business isn't what it was, and I think that the traffic into Central Florida internationally is obviously not what it was. So that's something that we're going to work. We want that to come back. And then Southern Florida, I think soft, but I think that's probably more related, to some of the local business rules that have been done, and I think we really need to get them moving again going forward. But all in all, I think we've kept things going. The state, everyone, there's no state restriction on anybody going to work or anything. We want people to be able to be successful, earn a living, have their business be successful, and we're going to continue working with everybody to get us back to where we need to be. And with that, I can take a question or two. Yeah, I think that I think a couple things we can say. Schools opened. The first school started opening over a month ago, and clearly the the COVID numbers have gone down since then. Today, I think we reported a little bit over 2,300 COVID positive patients being treated in Florida hospitals. So that's out of almost 65,000 licensed beds. So it's under 4% of the beds are occupied by COVID positive patients, and that goes down, it seems, about 10% every week, and so we think that trend is going to continue. We continue to see low levels of visits to the emergency department for COVID-like illness symptoms, which is probably one of the biggest leading indicators of that. And I've asked the Commissioner of Education to work with the health about providing some of the analysis on what's happened with schools, because I think the result has been very little secondary transmission. And I think that'd be good information for people to have. So I know they're working on getting that data and putting it out, but I think by and large, I think the K through 12 has gone well. We have over 1.1 million kids in person. That obviously is going to increase significantly with Dade and Broward coming online probably sometime the end of this month, beginning of October. Palm Beach is starting up, I believe, on Monday. So that'll be really, really good. It's important to give parents this option. to have the in-person schooling. And I look around the world and our country and the places that have done it. They've done it. And unfortunately, this is not a disease that targets the young. It tends to target the old. It doesn't mean that there's 0.00, but the risk is low, lower than seasonal influenza. So that's something that, we got to have that option. Now, not all parents have chosen that, and that's totally fine. We want to give them the ability to do what they want. But I would say, just having talked with folks in school districts, charter schools, private schools, that initial choice is made about in-person or not. And then as that school goes and kids are in, it's almost always the distance learners who are asking, hey, can I get my child in person? Very few in-person shift to distance once they're there. And I think it's just important for kids to be able to be there, learn, be there with other kids. And so providing that option was something we really wanted to do. We're glad we were able to do it, and we think it was the right thing to do.
Governor, on Monday, bars open 50%. How are things going with that? Does it seem like everybody's complaining about it?
I think I have not heard any major reports. We did have bars, open who a lot of them just switched to serving some food. So that had been open the whole time when they did that. Some of the other ones just didn't do it. So then they're going to start to do it. But I think they're going to do well. But I think people look. People have a right to work and earn a living, and I think you can't just say no. And I know there were some compliance problems, but I told the Secretary of DBPR, we got to get to yes. If someone's a big offender, then we'll deal with that individually, but I want them to be able to be in business. I think it's important that that's done. And quite frankly, you look, people like to say this or that. I don't know if people saw this thing out of Nashville where the contact tracing, they closed the bars and there was no contact tracing really to do it, and they kind of didn't have that public, and then it became public, and then they had to open them. So I think sometimes people just try to point to things. I'm not saying there haven't been any transmissions, but you look at areas that have never had bars open, and they seem to have the same basic structure of the curve that the folks that have had it. So I want people to be in business. I think it's important. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks guys. Appreciate it. Let us know we can be helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got the right guy in place for anything you need over the next few years.
Governor, can we get one?
This guy right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where do you want to do it at?
Can we maybe step off to the side? Do you know, or do it? If you don't mind, you've got one of your guys.
Hey guys, you want to get the picture with the check? Yeah, come on. Come on, get over here. Yeah.